welcome to the Actual Tech Media EcoCast. My name is Jess, and I am excited to be here with you all today. But before we jump into our content, I have some basic information that I want to cover with you. All right, let's kick off our day here today by taking a quick tour of your audience console. And we're going to start with the questions window. So if you haven't already said hi, there is a whole audience of cool humans out there, so reach out and give a wave to the other members of the Actual Tech Media community. Now, keep in mind that if you do have any technical issues today, a browser refresh is going to fix just about anything. But if those tech gremlins are clinging on today, no problem. Just throw a comment in the question section and our crew will be there to help. We also want this to be an informative webinar for you, so throughout today's EcoCast, we hope you'll get engaged and ask all your burning questions. Not only will we have team members responding to you over a live chat, we will also have a dedicated Q&A session at the end of our presentations. Now, if we don't get to your question during the live webinar today, don't worry, because the awesome experts that we have here with us will be following up after we wrap. All right, next up, there's going to be lots of cool aha moments on the EcoCast today. And if you want to share those with your community, we've made it nice and easy for you. You can use the Twitter button right there in your audience console, and the hashtag for today's EcoCast will be automatically added to your post. All right, our last stop on this guided tour, be sure to check out the handouts tab for some awesome resources and takeaways from our speakers here today. We have an info pack collection, solution briefs, white papers, data sheets, free trials, ebooks, upcoming webinars, and more. So many great resources, so be sure to go explore. Now, if that wasn't enough fun, we also have some exciting prizes that we'll be giving away throughout today's EcoCast. I'm going to tell you a bit more about those later on, but a few quick reminders for you all. First, you do need to be here live in attendance at the EcoCast in order to qualify to win a prize, and we will follow up with all of you after we wrap. Now, all winners must submit an IRS Form W-9 to Actual Tech Media, and all winners must meet the Actual Tech Media prize terms and conditions. Now, if you don't know what those full T's and C's are, that's fine. We've got the full thing for you. Just head on over to that handouts tab, click in, scroll down to the bottom, and you'll find them waiting for you there. Now, the absolute most important thing to remember is that we love getting all your insightful questions during these live webinars. In fact, we love it so much that we actually have a special additional prize for all you inquisitive folks out there. So in today's EcoCast, we will be giving away a prize for the best question asked in each of our live sessions. Now, the expert speakers and teams will review all questions asked after we wrap the webinar, which means that even if your question does not get read out in a live session, there is still a chance to win. If you are a lucky winner here today and you would like to donate the value of your prize, we have several wonderful organizations that we partner with. So let us know when we follow up about your big win, and we'll get that rolling for you. Again, we are so happy to have you all here with us live at the EcoCast today, and we want to keep that good feeling going, so let's connect on social media. Reach out and connect with Actual Tech Media on Twitter and on LinkedIn. We have lots of great content, and we always want to hear from you. Now, if you're looking for more awesome content and resources right after we wrap the EcoCast today, be sure to subscribe to the Actual Tech Media channel on YouTube. Another fun way to win a prize and, hey, grow this awesome community is to refer an industry friend or a coworker to the Actual Tech Media webinar series. Now, you'll find a link to do that right in your handouts tab, and you will also be automatically redirected at the end of the webinar. And both you and your coworker or friend could win a prize, and we hold those drawings every month. So be sure to refer a friend, because it could quite literally be a win-win situation. Next, we have a cool opportunity for all the decision makers out there to get connected with new and emerging tech and innovative vendors. Here's how it works. All you need to do is click on the link in your handouts tab, fill out a quick application, and the Actual Tech crew will then match you with some vendors that we think you should probably be chatting with based on your needs. There will also be fun opportunities that you get to choose to join in, like surveys, test runs, new solutions, extended demos, and so on. You'll get some chances to win extra prizes, you'll chat with great people, and you'll learn about the hottest new trends in tech. So be sure to apply, or hey, send that link to a decision maker on your team. Now, I want to take a quick minute here to remind you all about one of my favorite resources, and that is ransomware.org. You can find out everything you need to know about ransomware, how to prepare, prevent, and recover. This site is jam-packed with information, helpful tips, checklists, strategic approaches, case studies, everything you need in one place. So wherever you are in your ransomware preparedness journey, there is something for you at ransomware.org. Go check it out and start exploring. All right, I have one more exciting resource I have to tell you about today, and that is the Gorilla Guide Book Club. It's going to give you access to free enterprise IT books authored by top industry experts, so you can stay up to date on trending enterprise technology. And yes, these books will work on your Kindle, your mobile device, and as I said, they are completely free. You can download these awesome resources at gorilla.guide, and there's a link for you in that handouts tab as well. All right, well, we have covered a lot of important things already, and I don't know about you all, but I am excited to dive in. So let's get going. All right, folks. Well, we are going to kick things off today and get this awesome conversation started, because today we get to talk about the best practice series when we're chatting managing multi-cloud environments. And this is such an important conversation because I'm sure that a lot of you out there with us today are being asked to manage, maintain, and optimize increasingly complex cloud environments. And that's very exciting. I'm sure we're all thrilled about the opportunities there. It is enabling whole new areas for growth, for scalability, for agility, for speed. But this increased complexity and the rapid pace of change can also make it hard for us to keep up and really easy to feel overwhelmed. So today, we are all going to take a deep breath together, and we will let go of some of those burdens. We'll let go of some of the pressure, and we're going to get into the good stuff together. We're going to chat about what we're doing well, where we could do a little bit better, what trends do we need to be aware of, and what are the best practices that we need to have on our radar and in our plans. These are all great things. They are all coming your way, and the even better news is that we are not alone. We are going to be joined today by some awesome experts from Rubrik, Do-It, Palo Alto Networks, and VMware. I cannot wait to get into this conversation, so let's get this show on the road here today. I will introduce myself one more time. I'm Jess Steinbach. I'm a moderator here at Actual Tech Media. Now, we will be joined by my fellow moderator, Keith Ward, in just a moment for our keynote chat, and Scott Becker is here with us on live chat today. So you got the whole awesome crew. Speaking of awesomeness, prizes coming your way. We've got three $300 Amazon gift cards that we will give away to three lucky winners that are here and present with us at the EcoCast. Now, I mentioned this in the intro this morning, but if you are looking for the full terms and conditions, you can find those in your handouts tab. So feel free to check those out. All right, well, that's it for our intro. I think it's time to get into our content, and we are going to kick things off with a really fun conversation today. I am so excited to introduce our keynote speaker and just an all-around fascinating human. And that is, of course, Dan Sullivan, data architect, data engineer, cloud architect, author, and speaker. He does it all, folks. Dan is here with our wonderful friend and fellow moderator here at Actual Tech Media, and that is, of course, Keith Ward. Keith, thank you so much for joining us here today to kick off the EcoCast. I know you and Dan are locked and loaded, ready to dive in, so I'm going to bring you both on out here with me and hand things on over. Take it away, Keith.
Hi, everyone, and welcome. I am delighted today to be joined by Dan Sullivan. Now, Dan is a data architect, data engineer, cloud architect. He's an author of many books and articles on the cloud as well. I think it's safe to say he is a real expert in this area. Dan, thank you for joining us today.
Hey, Keith. Oh, it's great to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
So, for this event on managing multi-cloud environments, Dan, let's kind of start at the beginning with a table setting question. Why do companies typically use more than one public cloud anyway, when it would seem that ramps up complexity and other issues, security and all of that?
Yes, and that's a great question. Yeah, and I think there are several reasons. Some of the most salient or the most common are things like the fact that different clouds have different sort of strengths and feature sets, and we're seeing this especially now with the advent of generative AI. We will probably see more people making decisions about what cloud to use based on what capabilities are available in a particular cloud. Other times there are sort of more, not mundane, but just really fundamental questions about things like resiliency. And being in two different clouds gives us more options just from a perspective of ensuring we have, consistent availability of our services. So if we want to distribute workloads across multiple clouds. And there's always the factor of cost. Any time we make decisions about cloud, cost is going to be some consideration. And so there may be some workloads that can be run more cost effectively across different clouds. And so that's definitely going to be a factor as well that kind of influences, what's the trade-off between the complexity and your willingness to manage that complexity because of cost savings.
So you said the magic word, and so I'm going to follow up on that. You talked about AI. You mentioned specifically uh, generative AI. So can you dive a little bit further into how you mean that in the context of multi-cloud?
Well, basically, what we have with generative AI is basically a new set of tools for building applications, whole new kinds of applications that we might not have been able to build before. And now the question is, I may find one cloud vendor in particular has a really good, maybe image generative AI service or a language generative AI service that works really well with my specific domain. So for example, I might be in healthcare and I want to be able to generate text around healthcare medical types of domain, and that may be in a cloud that I don't currently use. And so the the benefits of using generative AI may be enough to kind of push a company over that tipping point. So maybe the cost and complexity trade-off wasn't worthwhile before, but now all of a sudden there's this new capability that we can build into our workflows and create new services that we hadn't thought about even 2 years ago. But now, this is something that is so sort of promising from a product perspective that we're going to take on this additional complexity.
And so I'd imagine, Dan, like most technologies that the public cloud is involved in, each cloud provider, you mentioned the big three before, are going to have their own version, their own functionality, their own way that they use and allow generative, why can't I say this word? Generative AI to be used. I mean, do you think that's fair to say they're going to have their own answers, and it's going to be up to each company to decide which one has the features they want? Is that accurate?
Yes, I think so. Right, and there will be common threads. A lot of the large language models are similar. They have similar capabilities, but there, if you get into them enough, there are enough nuanced differences that there may be reasons that you want to choose one over the other. But it's like running Kubernetes. All of the major cloud services have Kubernetes services, and they are. Definitely they run Kubernetes, but there are differences. And you may find that one is a better service for you than others. I've certainly seen that in my own work. That some I find a little easier to work with, a little more reliable, and so that's another factor. The more you work with a cloud, more you see these kind of subtle distinctions which aren't always apparent, on the surface or when you first start looking into a particular cloud.
Great. So on this event today, it's they're going to be talking about managing these multi-cloud environments. Now, from your perspective, as someone who works with companies in these exact environments, often, what do you see from your desk as some of the main multi-cloud challenges that that companies face that maybe even some that they hadn't really considered before?
Yeah, I think there are a number of sort of complexities that come with multi-cloud. I think security is a big one. And something as basic as identity management can be an issue. So you want to make sure you really kind of think through how are you going to manage identities across multiple clouds. And that's both for your human users, but also for your service accounts. And thinking about how are you going to, say, federate service accounts so that if you have a workload that's distributed across a couple of clouds, how are you going to sort of coordinate that workload so that services running in a particular cloud have all of the access they need, maybe to, say, storage on a separate cloud so that they can go access data. So the security in terms of identity management is an issue. I think observability is a big question that you have to kind of think through. How will you be monitoring your services and understanding, what's the state of your services and your workloads, and do you have access to metrics, logs, traces that give you an insight into, if there's a bottleneck in your service or if your service is not available, how can you identify the fact that the service is unavailable, and then what's the root cause of that problem, and then how do you mitigate it? And oftentimes when you have services that we expect to be, up 24/7 and always available, we're constantly trying to reduce the time that we have degraded services. So you want to think in terms of how am I going to monitor and mitigate problems when they do arise. So I think those are some definite challenges and things we want to think about. And then again, cost always comes up. We want to think about things like, oh, I'd really like to distribute this workload, but if we drill down, we might find that, we're going to transfer large volumes of data, we're going to incur egress charges. Is that, whatever that cost is it worth it relative to the value we're getting by, say, shifting some of the work to a different cloud? Or do we want to move our workloads to another cloud because it's closer to the data? So there are some architecture/cost management questions that come up as well quite frequently when we're dealing with multi-cloud.
Okay. Final question for you today, Dan. Do you find in your experience that companies do enough pre-planning before moving to the public cloud or multiple public clouds, or is there more of a fly by the seat of your pants idea? Let's put some workloads up there and then see what happens. What's your feeling about that?
Yeah, I see a mix of that, and sometimes there's a let's learn. So the let's put some workloads up and see what happens is a good way to do it if you assume you're in a learning mode. This is part of the process. You're trying to understand the cloud, and really, I have found there's no better way to learn a cloud than to actually use it. So. I think if you think about it as, this is like a learning mode, this is part of our adoption process and our migration to the cloud. That's more of a sort of a dangerous approach, or it's a risky approach when you think, I'm going to move my production workload into the cloud and see what happens. That doesn't necessarily work out always as well as we plan. But I do find people are methodical. Oftentimes companies will take a methodical approach, and that definitely helps. But like any complex endeavor, we can plan all we want, and then as soon as sort of the rubber meets the road and you start implementing things, we will inevitably discover things that we hadn't anticipated, or there'll be dependencies that we didn't see. So definitely, I feel like just across industries, there is a sense of like a maturity about people's approaches to the cloud. But even with that, we still run into challenges. It's not a trivial process that we're trying to do here.
But I do appreciate you kind of ending this on an encouraging note. You are seeing the increasing kind of knowledge base being built up, so they're not starting from as far back as as they were maybe 10 years ago or even 5 years ago.
Oh,
Well,
yes.
Dan, thank you so much for joining us today, for giving us a lot of insight into managing these multi-cloud environments, and I really appreciate your time.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Keith. It's been my pleasure.
What a great conversation. Thanks to both of you for getting this started. I saw a few people laughing. Keith, that is a hard one. Keith is practicing saying generative AI in the background now. It's a tough one. It's a tough one. And we're kicking things off early morning for some of us. So, we're all still waking up here today. All right. Well, we have a quick awake test for all of you out there. We're going to see how alive, awake, and functional you all are. So we're going to start with quick little poll for you. What is the time frame that you have in mind for adding new or updating existing IT solutions at your company? So today we are talking about multi-cloud. And if you're thinking about making revisions or, changes or up-leveling or whatever it is you have on your radar, are you thinking that those are pretty urgent, or are you thinking maybe a little bit longer term? There's no wrong answer here. This is just us making sure that we are hitting you with the right information in the right timeline for your IT life cycle. So make sure that you click on that poll there. Let us know where you're at. And we are going to keep things rolling. Last chance to click on the poll. Going, and gone. All right, we're going to kick off our day here today. And as you can see, we are definitely starting things out on a great note because we get to chat with Spencer Everts, Regional Sales Manager at Rubrik. Spencer, thank you so much for being here to get us started today to kick off this EcoCast. We are all so pumped to dive in. I know you have some great stuff lined up for the audience. We want to leave some time for questions, lots to do. So Spencer, I'm going to hand things on over to you. Take it away.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jess. Really appreciate the opportunity to be speaking with everybody today. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you guys are. My name is Spencer Everts. I run our go-to-market in the Northeast as well as Canada for our cloud solutions at Rubrik. So for the next 10 to 15 minutes, for those of you that don't know Rubrik, I'll give you guys a little background on what we're doing as a company. And then we'll really dive into the complexities around data protection and cyber recovery as it relates to multi-cloud. So really getting things rolling here. Just for a quick intro to Rubrik. So Rubrik was founded in 2014, and our charter was a next generation backup company, right? But in the age of ransomware, I feel like every time you see the news now, there's a new article that comes out with somebody being hacked or there's a breach. Or whatever it may be, we really shifted our focus to be more of a cybersecurity company, right? And we can do that because of the way our solution is architected on a zero trust data management framework and the way that we have ancillary SaaS tools that have been integrated into the platform to help out with a ransomware remediation perspective, right? And the software is designed to run anywhere. So whether you're trying to protect workloads on-prem, or in the cloud, or if you have a NAS or Microsoft 365, or using IaaS or PaaS services, whatever it may be, we have the capability to protect all of these workloads in one unified experience, right? So that's just a little bit of background on Rubrik and what our core focus is as a company now, really focusing on cyber recovery, but then also still helping customers with backup and data protection. So getting into the multi-cloud side of things and just what we've noticed really with our customer base and what we've observed is as customers are moving to the cloud, they end up adopting a wide breadth of applications and there's various teams responsible, right? And the big challenge from a data protection perspective is operationalizing this stuff is pretty tough because oftentimes every single application requires a different data protection scheme, or it could be managed by a different tool altogether. Right? And day one, you guys might be adopting AWS EC2, and then down the line, you might be refactoring or using Azure or NAS or whatever it may be. The point is that what we've noticed is different teams often control and protect their specific workload. So you might have an infrastructure team that's using a legacy backup software from an on-premise perspective. You might have an AWS team, cloud operations team that's using the native tools. And then you might have an end user collaboration team for Microsoft 365 that's using some of the capabilities in an E5 license. And with various teams responsible, you end up super siloed and none of it talks to each other. So if you had to go recover from ransomware, the workflow is going to be different across the board. And something that we've also seen is 95% of the ransomware attacks that have occurred in the cloud over the past year, they're really targeting the backup copies. And 75% of them were successful. And from the top level down, leadership just wants to know, hey, is our data safe from ransomware? How can we go about proving that to auditors? How can we regain visibility and control across our fragmented enterprise, right? And some of these challenges, what we've seen in our customer base really starts with being able to do a baseline backup across multi-cloud, right? Understanding that data is being protected across all cloud platforms. It's a huge challenge for customers really due to shadow IT in the cloud, right? You might have these architects that are building so fast in the cloud that an operations team can't keep up with all the data that they're creating. And essentially some data might get missed. You might forget to add a backup policy to certain workloads that were created, right? So at the end of the day, you don't really know what's being backed up, and it's super challenging to deal with. And then something else is visibility and control, right? There's no centralized management. So if you're in AWS, you're using AWS backup. If you're using Azure, you're using Azure backup. So none of this talks to each other. And there's inconsistent SLA policies, poor reporting across the board. So it's really challenging to report to auditors or to your risk management team on essentially what's being backed up and what's failing. Next is recovery. So doing things like file level recovery, granular level recovery, mass scale recovery can be really challenging with the native tools as well. And then finally is cost optimization, right? Something that so many customers are concerned about is how can we save money in the cloud, right? Your backup cost, you'll see from a storage and compute perspective on a monthly basis, and customers are trying to figure out ways to drive down their monthly expense there. And, these challenges really even get worse when you start operating in the cloud at scale, right? So essentially, a lot of the customers that we see, if they're doing anything meaningful in the cloud, they're running dozens or hundreds of subscriptions or accounts. And when you look at backup and recovery in the cloud, you need to go into every single subscription and set up backup jobs and the maintenance and the expiration of that data, right? And the subscription usually lives in multiple regions. So you're going to have sprawl from a management perspective because every single subscription is going to be a different login. And you're going to have to just manage data protection super siloed across all the different subscriptions that you have. And sure, Azure can report on some things aggregately, but when you start talking about doing recoveries or systematic ransomware recovery, you would need to go into every single subscription, which can be a huge manual process, and that can take a ton of time to do, right? And if you start introducing other cloud platforms on top of it, like AWS or GCP, and then your on-premise environment too, you have all this different complexity that you need to manage while still trying to solve those key challenges that I just talked about on the previous slide, right? Making sure we have a baseline backup, that we can streamline recovery, making sure that we have cost optimization, and then also from a visibility and control perspective. And really that's where Rubrik steps in, right? The first thing that we want to do is give you a unified experience no matter what the data source is, right? So if you guys are operating AWS today and from an on-premise perspective, rather than having two different point products, the Rubrik Security Cloud can auto-discover all the different assets that you have out there and set up protection with a single SLA, right? So it's super simple to manage. We give you a single pane of glass and really solve the data management challenge. Next is around cyber resiliency, right? We want to make sure that we can cyber-proof your environment. Just with everything that we've seen in the news lately, if a threat actor gets access to your global admin credentials and Microsoft, how can we ensure that data is always going to be in a sovereign state and that threat actors can't tamper with that specific data set, right? So Rubrik has the ability to make sure that the data is immutable and we can isolate the data in other tenants and other subscriptions. So if a threat actor did get access to one specific sub, they might be able to wipe away that single subscription. However, your data will be in a bunker subscription and safeguarded from that specific ransomware attack. Next is recovery, right? So making sure that we can achieve near zero RTOs and make sure we're hitting all the SLAs for the business. So with Rubrik, like I mentioned before, we're going to make sure all the data is in a sovereign state and we can recover the data, systematically from most important data down to, your least critical application. So we can create runbooks within our platform to make sure we're recovering the most mission critical applications first, all the way down to the least critical. And finally, the lower TCO. Compared to the native tools, we've seen that we can yield about a 30% ROI due to the way that we can intelligently tier data to cooler levels of storage, right? With some of the native tools, you have to keep data in a warm tier for a specific set of time before that data can be moved to a colder tier of storage. With Rubrik, we can instantly archive that data to a lower tier, drastically lowering your TCO. So across the board, we're going to give you significant savings compared to the native capabilities. So these are like the core 4 things that we're going to be able to do to really solve those challenges: is simple unified protection in a single pane of glass, complete cyber resiliency with the way that we can logically isolate data in the cloud, rapidly recover at, whether it's accidental deletion or some type of ransomware attack, and cost optimization with a lower TCO. That's all I had for you guys today. If anyone has any questions in the chat, feel free to reach out. I will say these cloud conversations are picking up significantly just with everyone lifting and shifting or refactoring in the cloud. And that's one of the number one things they ask is how can we ensure that, we're protected from cyber attacks? And then also, how can we save money in the process? Thanks so much for the time, and I'll hang on here if anyone has any questions for the chat.
Yeah, definitely. We've got lots of questions. Thank you so much, Spencer. You packed a lot in a short amount of time, I have to say. I'm going to move things over to the poll question here because we want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to let Rubrik know what additional information they would like. We're not done yet. Spencer's not going anywhere. We're going to get into some questions, but this is a great way to make sure that you are getting the follow-up that you're looking for, because there's just so much information that we're not going to be able to cover today. So we want to make sure that you are getting the answers that you are looking for. And this is the easy button. So click on that poll right there. Let Rubrik follow up with you after we wrap. While you're all doing that, Spencer and I are going to get into some questions from you all. Spencer, you ready to rock?
Yes, sounds good.
Okay, let's do this. Question. I just migrated my primary data center to Azure IaaS. How can we isolate data in the cloud? What do you got for us, Spencer?
Yeah, so I'd say with that specifically, a lot of customers will keep data in primary retention within their specific subscription. But if they're trying to create an air gap or isolate that specific data set, we can archive that data to another tenant altogether. So a lot of customers are trying to create this concept of a bunker subscription. So if a primary subscription was ever hacked, essentially your data set's going to be in a sovereign state in another subscription with different security permissions altogether. So that's kind of the way we're creating a air gap in the cloud and isolating that specific data set.
Awesome. Okay. This one I'm actually really curious about because I think there's a lot of folks in the audience here who are having to make arguments to different members of their team if they're looking to up level or change any sort of system. And so we get asked a lot about ROI or how to sort of pitch to members of their team. And you mentioned cost being top of mind for a lot of folks. So question, if I want to do a cost comparison of what I'm spending today with my native backup services versus Rubrik, how would I go about that? What would be the process of making that comparison?
Yeah, so you would work with your Rubrik representative that covers your specific account. And essentially, we have different calculators that can essentially look at what you guys are spending from a status quo perspective with the native tools, looking at the services, the overall retention, the growth rate, the change rate. And then we can compare that to what Rubrik would be able to offer you with our solutions, right? So very easy to do, to put together some type of cost analysis just to show the cost savings that we're able to get.
Okay. We are cruising through this, but we still have lots of questions, so I'm going to keep rolling here. Do I need to retain copies in warm storage before archiving to colder tiers?
No, so like I mentioned on that final slide there, so we have the capability to instantly archive data to colder tiers of storage. Like, for example, I know with AWS backup, they recommend keeping data, a week's worth of copies in warm storage before you move anything to like a Glacier or an S3IA or OneZone or things like that. And that's really due to the way that they have to have one full backup in warm storage in order for them to do incrementals. With Rubrik, since we have an incremental forever approach, we can instantly archive that data to colder tiers of storage, and we don't have to land anything on warm storage. So that's how we're able to drive those significant ROIs.
Okay. How do I ingest all my subscriptions and accounts into Rubrik Security Cloud?
Yeah, so that's super easy to do. Just the auto discovery with the Rubrik Security Cloud, just looking at how many assets that you have in Microsoft 365, the number of objects you want to protect, accounts, subscriptions, whatever it may be. The Rubrik Security Cloud can do that fairly easy and quickly for you.
Okay, getting close to time. I'm keeping an eye on it, but I think we've got time for a few more. What is the FLR experience like for a VM?
That's super easy. So that's one of the biggest challenges that we've seen with certain customers today that are using the native tools is essentially you have to spin up a Windows server, mount a VM, create a script to pull data out for like a single file. With Rubrik, it's a Google-like search function, so it's super easy to index the VM and pull that specific file out.
Awesome. We got an interesting question here. Wondering about, the question is basically that marketing is always going to tell us what is best, right? That's your job, is to give us the best features and the key highlights. Question if there's something that maybe doesn't get talked about as much, that isn't sort of the bright, shiny, flashy, exciting part about the solution, that you think is would be incredibly important for somebody to implement right away.
I'd say, so from an on-premise perspective, we have our enterprise edition that comes with solutions like ransomware investigation to look at the blast radius after an attack, threat hunting to look at Yara rules, sensitive data discovery. So all those things are coming to our cloud products. So we can support it for Azure VMs today, but on the AWS side of the house, those security operators are coming. Day one, we can help you from a simplicity, cost optimization, and resiliency standpoint with the way we can air gap the data. But those security operators will be coming to the cloud in the near future. So that's the one thing a lot of our customers are asking for, but it's coming.
Interesting question, Con. I like that. Actually, that leads in. David was asking about the air gap, and so wondering if you can shed a little bit of light on what is sort of special about the Rubrik air gap solution. Is it easier to execute, set up, any changes that you've made or implemented recently?
Yeah, really good question. So we can set that up with an SLA, and we're talking about this from a cloud perspective. So in order to do that, we would have to go to a different organization within AWS or a different tenant. And that's super simple to set up within the Rubrik SLA. Versus some of the native tools, there's scripting that's required. It's a very manual process, to say the least. Like I know with Azure Backup, you have to set up cyber vaults, recovery vaults, which can be difficult to do. So I'd say just the overall efficiencies from an operational perspective, we can do that a lot faster just within our SLA workflow compared to some of the native tools.
Awesome. Okay. We had a few people mentioning things about sort of requirements, and this is an interesting one. So wondering if your backup requirements make you keep 1 year of on-prem backups for fast restore times instead of restoring from the cloud. How do you right-size your environment at the initial deployment so you're not constantly having to purchase additional hardware?
So we would look at that specific environment to understand, what is required from an on-premise perspective today. What is going to be moving to the cloud? And we have different licensing models that can follow your data to the cloud. So day one, if it's required, you have X amount of terabytes on-prem, but that's going to be moving to the cloud, then that license would follow you to the cloud, and then we would back up the data there. So that we can get very creative from a licensing standpoint to make sure it's flexible and we can work with you no matter what your requirement is.
Awesome. Well, you've definitely given everyone a lot to think about today, and clearly there's lots more to dig into. We've still got a lot of questions coming in. I am going to make sure, Spencer, you're welcome to stick around if you've got some time on live chat and get back to some of these answers. We will also make sure that all of them get sent to the Rubrik team so that we can do any follow-ups with anyone that didn't get an answer today. But before you leave us, I'm wondering if you can give everyone out there an idea if they really wanted to get started and jump in with Rubrik. What would you recommend as sort of that first step?
Yeah, I would reach out to a local partner in your area. If you have a local reseller or alliance partner from a cloud perspective, or you can reach out to the Rubrik website and they can tell you specifically who your account executive is. And then from there, your account executive will reach out and schedule that first meeting with you and provide more information from there.
That's awesome. And we also have a handout for everyone. If you haven't already checked that out, if you head over to your handouts tab on your audience console there's a great takeaway from the Rubrik team that's going to be a really cool follow-up to the conversation that we just had here with Spencer. It's all focused on Rubrik for Amazon Web Services, lots of helpful tips and information. Spencer, anything you'd want to add on that handout?
No, I mean, for that specific handout, it really highlights our capabilities from an Azure perspective and AWS standpoint. So essentially, it'll show exactly the data sources that we support today from a services perspective, like EC2, S3, RDS. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, Spencer, thank you so much for coming to join us today. This has just been a ton of fun. I appreciate you kicking off our EcoCast on such a great note.
Awesome. Thanks so much, everybody. I'll hang on here for the chat.
All right. Well, and to all of you out there who are clicking on that poll, keep those answers coming in. Let Rubrik know how they can follow up with you. Make sure you've got that handout before you move on today, because you're going to want to come back to that. So open it up, download it, save for later. If you have questions, you just heard Spencer say he's going to be hanging out on live chat, and I know that we did not get to all of them, so keep those questions coming in. Spencer will either get back to you today, or you will get a follow-up email from Rubrik. So anything that doesn't get answered today, you will get those follow-ups. And keep in mind that you are all still entered to win the best question gift card, so keep those questions coming in each one of our sessions. We're going to review all the questions asked after we wrap, so even if we don't get to your question in our live Q&A chats, you are still entered to win. All right. Now, I know a few of you who are experts at the EcoCast are at home counting along saying, Jess, we got it, but it is time for a prize. And you are absolutely right. Let's do our very first prize giveaway. We are going to start with a $300 Amazon gift card going to someone here live and present at the EcoCast. And that special someone is Grace Alexander of Texas. Grace Alexander of Texas, you have won a $300 Amazon gift card. Congratulations to you. Now, as always, we will follow up with you after we wrap, so stay tuned for that. All right, my friends. Well, we're going to keep things moving right along. Leo says, go Texas. I like it. Nice, Leo. Good vibes all around on the EcoCast today. All right. Well, speaking of good vibes, let's get into our next awesome session here. Up on the EcoCast, we are going to be chatting with Zachary Almeida Beers, Head of Technical Account Management North America at Do It. I am so excited, Zachary, to hear from you, to hear a little bit more about what's up at Do It. So let's get things rolling here. I'm going to step back, hand things off to you. The platform is all yours.
Everyone, my name is Zach Almeida Beers. I'm head of technical account management here at Do It International. Doing this to talk a little bit about managing multi-cloud environments. I want to take a little time to talk about Do It and who we are as a company. For the last 12, 13 years, Do It is a multi-cloud provider helping digital native companies and other companies like innovate and optimize in the cloud. We manage over 1.5 billion in spend, 3,000 customers, and we work with all the major cloud providers. And we have really strong customer satisfaction rating. We have many cloud experts with many certifications and real expertise in the cloud. Dude's here to help deliver what we're calling the true promise of the cloud with ease and lower cost. We want customers to help harness the cloud in the most meaningful and efficient and effective way to drive business growth. And we deliver our own products around FinOps, understanding billing. We call it the Do It console. And again, we have really strong expertise across the board on all the major cloud providers, AWS, GCP, etc. So we try and help you understand and optimize and keep your environment lean and build it better, upskill and enable. So I'm here to talk about managing multi-cloud environments. There's a lot of articles out there that talk about this topic, whether it be third-party, ISVs, CSPs. I'm going to use CSP. It stands for Cloud Service Provider for short. There's varying opinions on this topic. Some say multi-cloud is the way to go. Others say you should be hesitant. I'm really just here to kind of help you all navigate any decision you might make around this topic. But I would maybe argue, are there really best practices around this? There are practices that people do, but are they the best? Best kind of assumes that it can't get any better, right? And I tend to not agree with that. again, there's always ways to do things, but we can probably always improve, how proficient we are and how we use these technologies. But just, a quick thing to think about, because again, like there are ways to go about doing this, and there are some things you definitely want to be thinking about. In other situations where you may be forced into doing multi-cloud, right? And we'll talk about those things. Probably the two top priorities, if you are going to really consider a multi-cloud setup, is security and networking, right? So how customers or how your users and internal folks access these services and how data moves, right? So there could be some challenges right around compliance, right? You have to think about that locality of data, where those data centers are, what those cloud providers provide, things like GDPR, et cetera. You have to take those things into account. You want to have some unified authentication system, for LDAP or SSO, using things like multi-factor. These are all general best practices around security, but the stakes are just raised when you're managing multiple environments across multiple clouds. Try using like things like key management services or token services, because you really want tokens or things you use to access your environment to only be used once and then kind of disappear, right? The other thing to think about here is least privilege, right? When you actually gain access to the system, but then you need to authenticate, it should only be through, with the least amount of privileges you would need to do something, right? So those are obviously kind of the key things around security. Again, may not be specific to multi-cloud, but you really have to hone in on those things. There's also a concept like a landing zone. I think AWS really kind of started this concept, but think of it like, the best starting point for an account or a project with specific networking and security and service things that are set up. So that way, when you have to go and deploy new things, you already kind of have your state of the art set up in terms of like the base of what you're starting with, right? And then you can build from there. The other key component here is networking, right? Networking, if you're going to be running multiple environments across multiple clouds, can be really expensive, right? Even if you're, just doing one thing like data analytics in one cloud and running your production application environments in another. If you're going to move data across the internet or some other mechanism, it can be really expensive. So you need to pick the right solution for your use case and for your application. There's obviously public internet. That's probably the most expensive and the slowest option, but easiest to deploy. There are things like interconnects or direct connects, cross connects, etc. These take a bit longer to set up, of course, but will give you more bang for your buck. So they're a bit cheaper and cost effective. But time to set up and getting those things configured, and obviously having a use case for that is really important given the amount of investment you'd have to put in. There are other, like partner interconnects or cross connects, and you can work with, any colo networking provider, and there's some really good options out there to kind of help bring down costs, make your workloads faster and more efficient, as well as keeping a lot of that data private, right? In terms of like the IP spaces and the CIDR ranges that you're actually using rather than using the public internet. When going through this, like you'll want to compress your data wherever you can from a cost perspective. If you're using petabytes of data across, and even an interconnect, it's going to be massively, massively expensive. So if data's moving, there's got to be a really good reason. And secondly, you should really compress that data whenever you can, assuming the application allows it. Common formats are like Avro, Parquet. That's not to say that those are the best, but just some general options. Back to the landing zone concept. In terms of like automation, you're going to want to think about making this as scalable as possible. You don't want, or you want as little manual process as possible to help your development and cloud infrastructure and operations teams actually do this at scale. So things like Terraforms, so infrastructure as a service, deploying infrastructure automatically, configuration management tools to help automate these processes. There's another angle that we can take here with about 12 minutes to go. And then we'll come back to some cloud solutions, and tools that you might want to think about for best, for quote unquote practices around multi-cloud environments. But there's also a risk to think about, right? It could be financial risk. It could be risk in terms of your relationship with your CSP or your cloud provider. So really you have to think of it like an investment, right? So would you go all in on a given CSP? Like maybe you would as a stock in the stock market. But it's really going to come back to what's a business case, right? I don't know if it's necessarily a good idea to go out there and start hedging bets on cloud providers, but it is a tactic that you can use, right? To, try and gain leverage, but treating CSPs as transactional partners rather than having a partnership with them it's not always fruitful, but could give you leverage just depending on your situation. You may want to counterpart, you may want to double down on a partnership and really invest in majority, of a cloud provider. I think some AWS documentation out there that suggests you should go 80-20, across clouds, which is talking about exactly what I'm talking about here. Right. But most of what you're doing in one cloud, be really good at that, hire people for those specific things. And then take advantage of, the technical and business things you would get from investing so much in one CSP. There's a concept around vendor lock-in, trying to combat risk by using multiple clouds. And I don't know if that's necessarily true. I mean, I'm sure a lot of companies feel that. The way you probably offset that is portability, right? Make sure that your applications can obviously run at scale and scale up and down and be elastic. It's really the whole purpose of the cloud, but also make sure that you feel the need or you feel like the feature set that a CSP that provides you isn't good enough. You're able to take that workload and do it somewhere else. But it's hard to know if vendor lock-in is really a real thing and if you should strategize around it. But from a technical perspective, you should probably, assuming you have talent, you should probably always, plan for those types of things. There's also, the concept of disaster recovery, recovering from failure. It does multi-cloud actually provide, a stable solution for that. I certainly don't think it's cost effective, right? Running multiple production environments or running, the same environment in two different places, like an active type of setup. It's going to be expensive. It's going to be hard to manage. You really don't get that much advantage. And there's probably some additional complexity of having to now work with two different providers, with potentially having two different service outages, or you have to work with two different support systems. So it actually may increase your blast radius rather than decrease your blast radius in terms of the risk. But I think the point is you want to keep it simple, but also have some disaster recovery or, recovery from failure strategy. Maybe like an active passive, and, if something does fail in one environment and you really need to move it across another cloud, you have some mechanism to automate that if you feel like you really need it. But you want to think about things like, from a recovery perspective, keep it in the same cloud, and then, regional recoverability. But either way, there's some things to think about there, that might be worthwhile. Other things to talk about, coming back to some solutioning. There's the concept of using best of breed. I already mentioned, don't try not to run two production environments of both clouds. Expensive, complex, hard to manage, hard to set up. It's pretty difficult in terms of who you have. You have to hire from many different skill sets. I would try and focus on infrastructure as a service, right? So focus on your core, GKE or EC2 compute type of things. And maybe look for best in class, but that won't always work out if you don't have the folks to actually deploy those things, right? Again, I mentioned portability. You want flexible architectures if you can. That doesn't mean that some application that isn't containerized and is a monolith can't move across, different clouds, but it does make it a bit easier in terms of the portability of those things. You'll want to use things like standard schemas and formats and using industry standard tools. Maybe open source ones, like try and obviously use things like open source code and anything that kind of makes in terms of like hiring the people you look for a bit easier, because those tools are just kind of available, is a good idea. In terms of like kind of the meat of what I really wanted to talk about, though, is a lot of this really just comes down to, what does your company need, right? Where are you at in the life cycle of your company's journey? Who's on your staff? How many people you have on your staff? What type of skills they have? Hiring is not easy, especially we're in September 2023. It's competitive, right? And it's expensive to hire people with cloud skills these days. So that's why you want, again, coming back to some of the open source stuff, you want to stick to some of those core components, and then skill up over time, right? So pick a CSP that you want to start with, because those are the people you have, or those are the people you can hire. And then over time, if you really want to take a multi-cloud strategy, start to skill your folks up over time, and maybe try and hire some folks who actually have the capability. So yeah, if you're just a small company just starting out, I don't know if a multi-cloud strategy really makes a lot of sense, right? You're just trying to focus on developing your product and making it good, acquiring customers, and thinking about multiple clouds in that scenario seems probably daunting with a really small team, like 1, 2, 3, maybe 5-person team. But if you're a much larger company, maybe you've been acquiring companies, so company acquisition, and the acquiring company uses a different cloud than you've been using. Suddenly you've been kind of forced into a situation where now you have to figure out your multi-cloud strategy. And if you haven't at least been seeding and planning some of those ideas, then you're at least playing from behind, right? Some other concepts to really think about, especially on staffing, is you want to make sure that when you start to build things, you build things with as little technical debt as possible. So that way, when and if you do want to move something to a different CSP and you have a multi-cloud strategy, then it makes that a bit easier. So there are a lot of companies that are, taking this kind of hybrid or multi-cloud approach, but it doesn't always make sense in the long run. And a lot of that just, again, depends on who you have, what your plans are. Are there real business applications to do that? Some key thing to think about too is like questions I'd probably leave you all with, now that we only have like 3 or 4 minutes left. Again, I've said this a couple times, but is my company at a stage where I can or should leverage multiple clouds? And will that have any value, right? So what problem are we actually trying to solve by using 2 CSPs, right? And then the answer to that is yes. Again, why are you doing this? What's the tangible benefit? And then you can kind of make your decision tree go on from there. The answer is no. Again, I mentioned this earlier. What groundwork are you laying to plan for the future, right? So again, if you happen to acquire a company that uses another cloud, are there real applications that you're just not ready for that may require multiple CSPs? And then, does the business know about this, right? Have you been communicating these things with other stakeholders that you're considering multi-cloud and the use cases you think that they'd be useful for? Have you talked to them? Have you worked with them yet? Are they part of those kind of strategy plans? Because the reality is, they need to be involved in that decision too. This isn't just a technical one. And there are a lot of potential advantages, again, from that you could get from doing multi-cloud or not doing multi-cloud, right? And there are a lot of risks associated to that too. And this just can't be a technical decision in the long run, given that running in multiple clouds, I think, definitely increases complexity, whether that be technical or not. Complexity is going up. costs could potentially be going up as well, which I think that's most companies' bottom line. So you really just have to kind of look at it holistically and kind of continue to plan. And again, if you happen to be acquiring companies, you have to know what's there and then kind of plan for what you're going to do with that going forward. So, hopefully that was useful. Again, there's already a lot of information out there, and it's hard to know for me, like what is a best practice these days. Again, I think there are things that are good to do, and there's definitely some key things to be thinking about when you're starting to consider these types of strategies. But you can't say one way or the other that being multi-cloud is the best thing to do. Even though many companies are doing it today, may not be by choice. So, and hopefully this is useful. And if anyone has any questions, you can feel free to reach out to do it. And you have a lot of expertise that can kind of help you all understand and plan for these types of things in the future. Take care. Thanks a lot.
Well, thank you. What a great presentation. Really interesting to kind of dive in to do it a little bit further. And we really appreciate your time today, Zach. Now, we do have a question up on the screen for all of you. What we're wondering is what additional information you would like to get about the Do It solution. So obviously, Zachary gave us a great overview and good insight. And there's just so much more to cover that we are not going to have time to dig into today. So as Zachary mentioned, you can submit questions through that questions tab, and Do It will follow up with you. So we'll make sure that you get responses either again on live chat today or an email follow-up. But another wonderful way to make sure that you're getting the information that you need is to click on that poll and let them know exactly what's going to be helpful for you. So while you're doing that, and while you are getting those last questions in, I will also suggest that you go over to the handouts tab. Make sure you've got the Do It handout, which is a Gorilla Guide. I absolutely love these Gorilla Guide resources. They are so much fun, great information, easy reads. So make sure that you've got that downloaded. Hold on to that, set that aside for after we wrap up today so you can go back and spend a little bit more time with that later on. Okay, well, with that, we're going to do one more prize giveaway, and this is our second of 3. Remember, we have 3 Amazon gift cards we'll be giving away today, and they are going to lucky winners here and present at the EcoCast, alive and well, or at least alive and here at that's what we're looking for. We'll lower that bar a little bit. The second gift card today, $300 Amazon, is going to Roberto Lopez de Villa of Puerto Rico. Roberto, you have won a $300 Amazon gift card. We will follow up with you after we wrap. Congratulations, Roberto. And as always, stay tuned for that best question gift card coming at you from each session. So make sure you've got those questions coming in. The competition is fierce today. You guys all clearly had your coffee. You're alive, awake, alert, enthusiastic, and I love it. All right, well, let's keep those good vibes going because we are going to keep things moving right along in our EcoCast today. And as you can see, we have an awesome crew up next. I am so excited to introduce you all to this dynamic duo. Samuel Lee, Senior Product Manager at Palo Alto Networks, and Anton Badilovsky, Senior Technical Marketing Engineer at Palo Alto Networks. Samuel and Anton, thank you so much for being here with us today. We're already having a great time at the EcoCast. I know you guys are going to keep that rolling for us. There's lots to dig into. We want to make sure we save some time for questions at the end. So we got a lot to do. I'm going to step back and hand things on over to you. Sam, take it away.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for your interest in the cloud and GFW. Today, I'm going to talk about managing security in multi-cloud environment. And with me, I have Anton for my team. So let's get started.
Hi, everyone.
So in the typical customer journey that we are seeing here, most customers start off as in the traditional data center, and they move on to the virtualization of the data center, right? A lot of customers in the last 10, 15 years have been trying to move towards the cloud through their different cloud migration strategies. And today we have a very unique situation where a lot of our customers are no longer on just one cloud, but in multi-clouds. And this has been something that we've seen very commonly happening for various reasons. But one thing that we want to do for our customers today is to actually help you protect all your clouds with a common offering that we have today, which is what we're going to talk about. And to secure your multi-cloud environment, there are several components we need to secure. Your applications, your users, and devices, all from the network-based attacks. Your clouds may vary from AWS, Azure, all the way to NSX and to GKE, right? But the common thing that we need to take note of is the network attacks. So what we're going to share with you shortly is about the different kinds of attacks and network traffic that we want to secure. So as the slide is playing out, one thing to take note of here is there is the outbound traffic that we want to protect, along with the east-west traffic and inbound. And in the past, one of those ways that we did is to actually have what we call as a IaaS offering on each of these points here, oops, to inspect the traffic. So on this slide itself, what you can easily tell here is that while this solution is great, we need an offering that helps you scale quickly and rapidly to meet your company's needs. This is where we're introducing Cloud and GFW for the public cloud. We have 4 different offerings today that cut across 2 different categories. We have the OEM model and the ISV model. The OEM model, for some of you who might already know, it is the Google Cloud IDS, and most recently we have the Google Firewall Plus offering. On the OCI, we have the OCI Network Firewall. So in case you're wondering why we're talking about this two, we have actually OEM what we offered on both the AWS and Azure side into both Google and OCI. This helps them actually use the same technology that we have built for AWS and Azure into their environment. And on the AWS and Microsoft Azure side, what we have done here is we actually built it by ourselves, Palo Alto, and such that we provide you that native experience and it's being managed by Palo Alto. But one common thing, which we're going to share in the next slide, is that they are all powered by the same VM series technology that we are using. All right, on this slide is where we can see we are using our famous VM series, right, which has been recognized multiple times by different analysts as one of the leaders in network security. This is the common platform that we're using to support all our cloud and GFW. One thing that we have noticed from our customer conversations is that there are 2 different groups of customers that are asking for 2 different things. The first group of customers, which is what we call the network security administrators, they typically are looking for the best-in-class security, and they're looking for the complete solution, which is the layer 7 kind of protection they're having. They want to have the ML prevention, ML-powered preventions to help them. On the other hand, we also have the cloud security administrators who want something that's quick and easy to deploy. They want to have zero maintenance. They want to have scalability and resiliency given the cloud environment. And this is what we call as the easy offering. Unfortunately, for years, there has been no combination of what we call as the easy and complete offering until today. So this is where I'm going to introduce to you the best-in-class offering that we have. That is also what that also offers you the cloud native ease of use, and that's Cloud and GFW. With Cloud and GFW, what you can do here is you can start to help your customers secure the environment with this offering as a service. They will no longer need to manage the environments or the infrastructure, as I'll call it. In the following slide, you'll be able to tell that the customers will only need to manage the security management, where they'll define the security policies, do basic routing, and manage it all of this through either the Azure portal or Pen Console for AWS. As for the infrastructure management, this is being taken care by Palo Alto. So all the scaling up and scaling down, the need to do the lifecycle management, all of this has been taken care by our offering, which is being tested rigorously. We scale up to 50 Gbps with an SLA of 99.99. Let's go to the next slide. One of those key differences for the audience to understand is while the IaaS and the Cloud and GFWs appears to offer the same network security protection, one of those key things that I want to highlight here is the differences between these two. When you have an IaaS offering like VM series or the likes out there, what you really get is just the license. You have to deploy it and set it up similar to what you see on the right side if you want to have a highly scalable and reliable offering. So with Cloud NGFW, what you get actually after deploying it within a few clicks, you get the entire solution set up for you, not within weeks nor months, but within minutes or under an hour. This offering actually provides you the built-in scalability such that you can scale up easily. Rather, you do not even need to scale up. The offering scales up by itself. It has built-in resiliency that we have different instances in different AZs. And finally, we would also provide what we call as the built-in lifecycle management, which we provide the firmware, hotfixes, content updates for you. We are the only offering out that provides you this multi-cloud support across the different CSPs that you've seen earlier. And we also provide you VUN support for Cloud NGFW for Azure. So to sum up these key capabilities, these are some of the things that I'd like you to take note of. Our offering, Cloud NGFW, provides you a CSP native service. It provides you the best-in-class security and integrates with the CSP portal. Today, you can actually deploy all of this with infrastructure as code such as Terraform, CLI, SDK. And to help you have to secure your multi-cloud deployments, you can actually use Panorama to do so. And over here, I'm going to hand over to Anton, who's going to describe to you a little bit more about what Cloud NGFW looks like for both AWS and Azure.
Thank you, Sam. So let's start with Azure first. So this product is manifested in that CSP as a Cloud NGFW resource. So when you deploy a Cloud NGFW, what we are doing for you under the hood is managing and deploying that infrastructure. And that infrastructure includes everything that you used to deploy by hand when you use the network virtual appliance approach. So that's the virtual machine scale set, which allows us to automatically scale out and back in based on the utilization. As Sam mentioned, those individual VMs are deployed across the availability zones to enable zone redundancy. So should one data center go down, our service will automatically repair the instance that was affected and spin it up in the remaining ones. On top of that VMSS, we do add the load balancer sandwich, so-called approach, where for inbound and outbound and east-west traffic, those load balancers make sure that the sessions end up on the right firewall, that we use the entire cluster and the capacity within that cluster. And we do perform source and destination NAT depending on the direction of the traffic. So that's Cloud NGFW resource in Azure. In AWS, it's a different cloud, works slightly different. However, we meet the same requirements for high availability, resiliency, and fault tolerance. In AWS, we are actually leveraging a gateway load balancer, which brings its own benefits. We don't have to do network address translation. So in a similar fashion, we have auto-scaling groups where those individual VMs run in their respective availability zones for resiliency, and AWS Gateway Load Balancer fronts that cluster, and you leverage NGFW endpoints that you can drop in your VPCs to enable that true bump in the wire experience. And keep in mind, all of this infrastructure, both for Azure and AWS, you don't have to spend any extra. It's all included as part of this service. So we are talking multi-cloud today and how you manage that security. We have the products. You can deploy them, whether they're NVAs or Cloud NGFW, different clouds. How do you make sure that your policy is consistent across all of those environments and form factors? And the answer to that is Panorama. Panorama is your single interface for managing security policy. Within Panorama, you can have templates, policies, objects, and you can leverage the Panorama plugins for each respective cloud. to go and then push those policies to the firewalls. So we can do physical firewalls that are still on premise or in colo locations. If you have virtual firewalls just running on KVM or ESXi, that is also there available to you. In public clouds, you can run those NVAs, still continue doing so. And with the new line of products that we talked previously about, the Cloud and GFW, that integration with Panorama is available. So I'm going to play a short video for you demonstrating the security management in this multi-cloud environment. So first of all, this is what we're dealing with, different form factors, different environments, hybrid and multi-cloud, and Panorama managing this deployment. You can see the way these firewalls show up in Panorama. They're just devices, so just firewalls, whether it's a physical firewall or a cloud and GFW, there will be a respective device group. The only difference with cloud and GFW is because we auto scale, you may see a lot more VMs under those device groups if you push enough traffic through this service. So the devices register with Panorama and then get their policy. And I can show you an example of such policy where we are securing these multiple platforms. And this is an SSH policy. The video will go into this policy. So we have a tag, we have a source. So from these addresses to these two applications, and we're leveraging our patented app ID to match on, in this example, SSH. So the firewall will identify that application at layer 7. We also have some threat prevention profiles applied. And this is the most important one. Here you can specify the target. So this policy, the same policy, you can apply to a device group that represents Cloud and GFW, in this case in Azure. We also have a Kubernetes cluster that is running somewhere on-prem. We also have a physical device, PA850, and there is a VM series there at the bottom, probably running on some KVM cluster. So, and you push this policy, you select where you want this policy to go, and Panorama, through the use of these plugins, is able to commit and push this policy to all of these platforms. Okay, so this concludes the demo. For Cloud and GFW, we are available in 14 major regions. As you can see, we're pretty much global. The US, Canada, Europe, the UK, Australia, and we have more regions scheduled to be rolled out. On the AWS, we also pretty much everywhere. Those regions are available, so you can subscribe to this service and deploy it across all of these. And this concludes our presentation. Thank you.
Okay, well, thanks, team. And I appreciate both of you being here for that awesome presentation. And the good news is we're not done yet because we have a lot of really great questions coming in. And we definitely want to spend some time digging into those. Before we get into the audience Q&A, though, for everyone out there, you're going to see that poll up on the screen. And that's going to give you an idea, again, some follow-ups from this presentation, from this discussion that we're going to continue here with Anton and Sam. But, you know, there's so much information, and it's easy to think that you're going to remember all of it when we wrap, and you just won't. Unless you're one of those lucky few people with an absolutely eidetic memory, you're not going to be able to retain everything. So this is a way that you can make sure that you can jog that memory later. You can get back into the flow here by clicking on the poll and letting Palo Alto Networks know exactly what they can send your way. Is that a data sheet, a white paper, case study? What's going to be most helpful for you? So while you're doing that, we are going to get into some audience questions. Anton, Sam, you guys ready to dive in?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it.
Okay. All right. So I want to start with this one here because we get a lot of questions about pricing. Obviously, that's top of mind, and whenever we're talking about cloud in particular. So, does the pricing include the entire cost of load balancer, storage, and compute for VM license?
Yeah, it does. So in fact, the pricing that you see includes not just the load balancer, it also includes the cost of the firewall itself, the compute that you need to take to run the whole entire infrastructure.
Awesome. Quick and easy answer. I like it. All inclusive. Okay. Do you support vWAN for cloud for next gen firewall for Azure?
Anton, would you like to take that?
Yes, we natively integrate with Virtual WAN in Microsoft Azure, leveraging things like routing plans and policies, and we are the only SaaS provider available today.
Ooh, okay, I like it. That's a good unique. This is a great question because I think it's probably something that a lot of people are wondering about. How does auto scaling work?
Yeah, so auto scaling, the way it works is for Cloud and GFW, we work in a very unique way. What happens at the beginning of the cold start when you deploy this offering, we actually have not one, but 3 VM instances under the hood. So what happens is along the way, as your traffic increases, we will start to add the 4th and the 5th and all the way up to 50 Gbps, the number of instances to support your traffic. So what this means is you do not even need to lay a single finger up to do all of this effort that used to take probably 3 to 5 men to do it proactively, and the fact that they also have to get a license ahead of time. All this is done for you real time without the need to acquire new licenses.
That's great. I'm assuming that we got a couple of questions coming in about folks who have really dynamic IT environments. And so that sounds like this is going to be really helpful for them and reduce some of that heavy lifting.
Oh, yeah. And it also save them the weekends as well.
Yeah, that comes up so often, is giving people their weekends back, avoiding those 2 a.m. panic phone calls, all of that, that pain, those pain points that everyone can relate to. And anytime you can remove some of those pain points, you're winning fans in the audience there. What does built-in resiliency mean for cloud and really in particular next-gen firewall?
Anton, would you like to take that?
Yes, thanks, Sam. So built-in resiliency leverages the zone redundancy provided by Azure, and on AWS front, we also have different AZs. So when you, with that single click of a button, when you deploy Cloud and GFW in either of the clouds, we make sure to distribute the instances across those availability zones. That means if one data center goes down, you're still okay. Our service will actually detect that and restore that instance with the remaining availability zones.
Awesome. Okay. Question from Chris here, wondering about customizable analytics. How customizable is that?
On the topic of customizable analytics, what our customers can do today is they can actually pull out different kinds of reports or logs itself from either on Log Analytics itself, which is possible on Azure Portal. Alternatively, if they would actually like to see even more, they can actually even use Panorama, Palo Alto single pane of glass, which gives them deeper and richer analytics about their traffic, the flows, the type of threats that we have seen through the firewall.
Okay, actually, that leads in really well to this next question here about Panorama. Can you manage cloud and GFW or next-gen firewall using Panorama? And if so, which cloud and GFW next-gen firewall?
Anton, would you like to take that?
Yes, you can absolutely manage Cloud and GFW for AWS and Cloud and GFW for Azure on Panorama using the respective Panorama plugins. So that allows you to push the policies that you may already have for your physical or virtual appliances, Palo Alto firewalls, to these cloud firewalls. And that gives you that consistent policy across both of the clouds. On the front of Oracle and GCP, you can manage the VM series that you deploy in GCP and Oracle on Panorama, the same way as with any other VM series.
Yeah, and just to quickly add on as well, so we have a very unique situation where customers who just want to go deep in Azure or be it on AWS, they can also do so on this offering without having to use Panorama. But Panorama just gives them the extra option to be able to not just manage one, but two types of Cloud and GFW on a single pane of glass. So they actually have three different options in managing this offering.
Well, and maybe that you had mentioned different reporting and our single pane of glass, so that may be sort of answering this next question here. But how do you provide visibility into the firewall activity?
Anton, would you like to explain that?
Yeah. So the traditional firewall logs, so the traffic logs, threat logs, URL filtering logs, they are streamed in real time, either depending where you manage it. So in the case of Panorama, you will see them in the Monitor tab. In the case of cloud services, so in AWS, it could be your Kinesis or your S3 bucket. In Azure, it is Log Workspace. So that's your primary visibility tool. But the firewall itself, whether it's healthy, how it's doing, for example, for Azure, you can poll. It's a resource within the ARM framework. So you can poll the status and get that through APIs and Azure Portal. In the case of AWS, you have the Cloud and GFW console where you deploy it, and you can get that visibility there as well, as well as all those logs that I mentioned.
That's right.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's get into the nitty gritty here. What is the product's SLA?
The product SLA is 99.99. This itself can also be seen on Palo Alto's website. There's a document that speaks specifically about SLA. And on top of that, some of the customers who are asking this are also concerned about where we are and what is the status of this service. You actually can also check this out at status.paloaltonetworks.com. You can see Cloud and GFW's for Azure and AWS, the status there, along with other cloud offerings that we offer at Palo Alto.
Okay, we got a couple of questions coming in from folks doing their research and wondering where they could find any either case studies or reviews. Any suggestions for that?
Anton?
So the reviews, you can find them on the respective marketplace offerings. So in AWS Marketplace, in Azure Marketplace, there's customers just like you, they those reviews there. We also have the Palo Alto Live community, where there's a bunch of videos and collateral published. So that's live.paloaltonetworks.com. Under products for network security, you can find sections for Cloud and GFW for Azure and Cloud and GFW for AWS. So there you would find our blog posts, videos, and collateral.
Awesome. All right. Well, that ties in very nicely to what is going to be my final question. Although, guys, I have to say, I wish I could keep going with this because we've got some great questions and this has been so much fun, but we're good. We're going to have to wrap it up eventually, and we'll end with that call to action. So what do you want people to do? If they're ready to jump in, they want to learn more, get started with Palo Alto Networks, what's step one?
Yeah, so the very first step is just head over to portal.azure.com, type Cloud and GFW, and you can start using the product. Within seven easy steps, you can create a firewall. And if you have any questions after that, feel free to reach out to me and Anton. We'll be more than happy to give you a detailed walkthrough throughout this whole product and all the benefits of this product. Okay, thank you.
And I just want to add, there's a 30-day trial, so it will cost you $0 to try it out. Yeah.
That's perfect. The best way, as we always say, to get to know if something's going to work for you is just to try it out, right? Play, get to know it. Anton, Sam, thank you so much for being here with us today for a great presentation, taking some time to answer some questions. I know we all got a lot out of it. We really appreciate your time today.
Thank you, guys. Have a good one.
Thank you.
All right. And to everyone out there that is still clicking on that poll, keep that up. Keep those questions coming in. Again, you are first and foremost entered to win that best question gift card. And even better than that, you'll get some follow-ups. You'll get the information you need. You'll get the answers you're looking for. So get those questions in. Sam and Anton are here. They'll answer some questions on live chat. And then any questions that we don't get to, we will make sure are followed up via email. So keep those rolling. I'll also suggest that you all head on over to the handouts tab. Make sure you click on the handout from Palo Alto. Really cool takeaway and follow up to the conversation today, because it's the slide deck. It's the slides from Sam and Anton. So if you're looking to remind yourself of all the cool stuff that we just learned. What better way to do so than walk back through that presentation? So click on the handouts tab, make sure you've got that, hold on to that. Chris, I agree. I see Chris says great presentation. I give that I'm giving you a big smiley face. I always try to respond to you guys while I'm also talking. I don't know if you guys have tried to do that. Talking and typing is very difficult. It's a complicated process back here behind the moderator curtain. There you go. That's my smiley face. Appreciate your high five there, Chris. All right, well, let's keep things rolling in our megacast, EcoCast. I saw Leo said woohoo, and I got distracted, and now I've totally forgotten where I am. See, I'm having a day. Keith and I are struggling with the King's English, Queen's English, King's English. We're back at it, today. All right, folks. Well, we're going to move things along before my brain can completely melt out of my ears. Let's get into our very last presentation of the day. Now, I know nobody likes to hear that when we're hitting our last presentation, but here's the good news. The good news is we are ending with a bang. We get to chat with VMware. All right. So that's our good news, bad news. Last presentation, but we have quite the expert in store for you. So we're going to be chatting with just a moment with Mandy Sterbakken, Senior Specialist Solution Engineering, VMware, Multicloud Management, Emerging Business. Lots of great stuff in there. Mandy, I know you have quite the presentation lined up for us, and we cannot wait to dig in. So I am going to step back and hand things on over to you. Take it away, Mandy.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for that introduction, and thank you for having me today to talk about multi-cloud. I'm happy to be here to share VMware's perspective on effective management of multi-cloud environments, something that we call Cloud Smart. Now, as we've heard from some of the other presenters today, and as you're probably already experiencing in your own organizations, multi-cloud is inevitable for most IT organizations. We have a rich application portfolio, existing applications that may need to be modernized or updated, and new applications to deliver new business value to customers, more AI, ML, and high-performance compute applications coming around all the time, and edge and real-time and all kinds of different applications that are essential to IT's ability to support the business. And all of them have slightly different use cases and needs from their supporting IT infrastructure. Some of those are listed here in terms of the capabilities, the how, if there's technical debt, if there's regulatory and governance policies that have to be adhered to, what are the economics around being able to support these applications, data privacy concerns, all kinds of considerations that go into determining the best infrastructure platform for an application. And some of those options may be your private cloud environment, the public cloud, partner clouds from VMware's partner clouds, for example, edge clouds that are becoming more and more common. And it's important that organizations are able to make the decision of where to place their applications based on the needs of the application and not the restrictions of the environments that they are able to support or have access to. As we've seen in the past, if we as IT teams are unable to support the application teams in the business with the underlying infrastructure needs that they have, they will simply go around us. So some of that is where we found ourselves with Cloud First. There's a lot of benefits that we've found from cloud, as you've all run into as well. Some of it was from shadow IT, and some of it was from a deliberate strategic decision by the business to go Cloud First wherever possible. And early migrations or deployments, usually new applications, but some refactored applications going to the cloud were successful. There was improved time to value. The business teams and the application teams were happy to have more control over their environments. Of course, that led to internal IT teams having less control, more of a focus on the front office apps or web applications, or those applications that were more simpler to deploy to a public cloud environment. However, as some of these workloads ended up coming back to the IT organization to support, or there were mergers and acquisitions of organizations that had a different cloud strategy or a different cloud partner, we found ourselves struggling to manage the complexity of these incompatible environments. There were operational consistencies between these environments. There are different skills and processes in place to manage them, different tools, different SLAs, if we can even really figure out or find out what those SLAs are, various capabilities only available in one cloud or another, and then incompatible security and governance policies, making it more difficult to ensure that there is consistency in those compliance and governance policies across the board. And so we found that the benefits of that cloud first, those first few applications that went to cloud, and those early successes morphed into a longer time to value, us not realizing the value of cloud, higher risk because there may be gaps in visibility or security policies. And actually these environments ended up costing more in the long run. And so we figured out fairly early on that there was a need for a multi-cloud platform with consistent infrastructure and operations to support both enterprise and modern applications so that we could help our customers start to reduce some of that complexity of multi-cloud and get back to really being able to benefit from the value of these different cloud providers. So that's where many of our customers are today. We refer to it as cloud chaos. We're multi-cloud. We have different applications in different cloud providers. We may even have different siloed teams supporting those different cloud providers. We have siloed pockets of infrastructure, excuse me, and everything's slowed down. Migration has slowed down. Management is more firefighting, not less firefighting. We found ourselves in this world that we here at VMware call cloud chaos. So what we discovered that customers were consistently asking for across all of their clouds, no matter where their workload lives, were fairly consistent: a secure way to deliver services to any cloud with automation, and capability to optimize performance in a consistent manner across multiple different clouds. The ability to be able to control costs and make decisions based on cost when determining where to place a workload. And these are fairly consistent asks of our customers for capabilities, regardless of whether these workloads are being deployed or live in the public cloud, a private cloud, or in any of those other environments that are springing up. So this is what we call cloud smart. When we've got to a position where we have this level of consistency across our tool sets, across our skill sets, and across our cloud environments, that allows us to choose the right cloud for the right app for the right cloud based on the needs of that application, where we can confidently apply consistent management and security and governance processes across those different cloud providers and not be afraid that there are gaps that could lead to some kind of security issue, and the ability to make a cost-efficient use of clouds. And this is what we call cloud smart, and this is the VMware journey that we are helping our customers on. So part of our journey to cloud smart is what we call the VMware Cloud Operating Model. This is based, much of these capabilities come from our VMware Aria suite in terms of the capabilities that will take your virtualized environment and make it into a true cloud. The elastic resources, the self-service, the metering, self-service provisioning, those kinds of things. And so when we talk about our VMware Cloud Operating Model, it has two aspects to it. The first one is to build and manage VMware clouds. That is your cloud, your virtualized infrastructure that you know and trust evolved to be a true cloud environment for your end users. And then the second one is to embrace your organization's use of multi-cloud, to align those different cloud providers and unify that management across multiple different clouds. And this is a single control plane across your clouds. That is the simplest way of putting it. And so if we start from that very fundamental base level of your cloud environments, it's about the infrastructure. And so we know that you are using infrastructure from these native public clouds, whether it be in IaaS or whether it's in PaaS or whatever. And then we know that you have your private cloud infrastructure, usually on VMware. But what you might not know is that we also have agreements in place with these public native cloud providers to offer a service to you of the VMware software-defined data center stack that you know and trust, running in those hyperscaler environments, which is the best of both worlds. So then we have a mix of these clouds, public clouds natively, private clouds, and these hybrid clouds of vSphere with our applications and our containers and our VMs. And then we need to be able to deliver a way of, or offer a way of, for our users to deliver the resources and the services that they need across those environments, but in a consistent way, but with guardrails in place. And so this is where our automation layer comes in as part of this single control plane, both for the cataloging of these services, the guardrails across workloads, wherever they are being deployed to, configuration management to keep those workloads consistent in a known good state, and of course the CI/CD. And then once you have the delivery automation in place and you are deploying these consistent secure workloads, we need a way to optimize. And that's what we call our operations layer, which includes the traditional troubleshooting and alerting and management and those kinds of things, but also application monitoring further up the stack, and also visibility into networking. And then finally, we need to wrap that all in cost management. We need to be able to make sure that we are keeping costs under control, that we understand the costs of our resources across these different environments. It's always a trade-off between capabilities and costs, and you need visibility and data to be able to make smart decisions. So if we start back at that infrastructure layer, what this is in our world, in the world of VMware, is for consistency with your cloud infrastructure, is our cloud SDD stack. And you know and trust this as your compute, storage, network, and management components that you are very familiar with in your data centers today. But the VMware cloud is available in more than just your data center. It's available at our cloud partners. It's available through AWS, VMware Cloud on AWS, available from us or directly from AWS. It's available from Azure through Microsoft and their Azure VMware solution, and it's available through Google and other hyperscaler partners. So you can choose a self-managed option or a fully managed option, but whatever you choose, the benefits are consistent. It's a known software data center stack. You have the consistent management and APIs and a unified console. You are integrated deeply with our other enterprise-grade capabilities. It makes migration much more simple from private hybrid cloud to public cloud and back, and it's extremely flexible. For operations and the operational layer that I talked about, we have ARIA Operations, VMware ARIA Operations, which again, you're probably familiar with in your private cloud, in your virtualized data center environment already. But did you know that it also supports native public cloud and our VMware cloud on the different hyperscalers, and not just VMs, but also applications and containers? The VMware ARIA Operations today offers continuous performance optimization, efficient capacity and cost management, and intelligent remediation across all of these types of workloads and all of these infrastructure providers. At the delivery layer, we have VMware ARIA Automation, part of the same VMware ARIA suite of solutions. And this provides your self-service catalog and provisioning, not just of VMware VM workloads, but to those native public cloud providers too, and those different types of workloads that we've talked about already. It provides infrastructure as code or blueprinting, depending on the persona of the person that's building out these services. They can use their preference in being able to build out the kinds of blueprints and services that that aligns with their preference. It has those built-in policies and governance to make sure that those policies are applied at the time of the workload deployment, wherever those workloads are deployed to, and then through configuration management, make sure they stay in compliance. And then, of course, we have the orchestration and extensibility that we've always been known for at VMware to allow the integration and the interaction of our solutions with the other solutions in your portfolio to make it a seamless operational environment. Now, I know that this is a very short session today, and so I'm just touching on this at a very high level and really briefly, but the VMware ARIA suite brings the ARIA automation components that I just touched on, the operations components. There's log analytics that are included. There is VMware Skyline, which is a proactive service that allows you to be notified of knowledge base articles or support issues or end-of-life information around the various components in your private cloud. And then on the VMware Tanzu side, we bring in those multi-cloud capabilities around guardrails across public clouds, as well as what we're already doing with ARIA in your private cloud environment. Tanzu Cloud Health for cost management and streamlined operations across multi-clouds, the same as what we're doing in the private cloud and the hybrid cloud with VMware ARIA operations. And then Tanzu Hub to bring everything together for a centralized view and of your entire environment. So I know that that's an awful lot, and so the best thing I thought that I could do as part of the short session today was maybe give you a quick look of what ARIA operations looks like today in this multi-cloud world. As you see, we still have the same pillars of operations that you know and depend on: observability, capacity, etc. And we also have the infrastructure components that you're probably already monitoring with operations in your data center today. Our software-defined stack, the vSphere, vSAN, and NSX components, but also our Horizon and Kubernetes supported in there as well. And VMware Cloud, the VMware software-defined data center on our hyperscaler partners' hardware. Again, right in here in VMware Operations, monitored with all of the goodness in operations that you already know today. But did you know that we also can extend these same capabilities to native public cloud environments, AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud, to really give you multi-cloud visibility across your environment? And then we've also made huge improvements to the way that we integrate with other solutions in terms of extensibility, with automation within the tool itself for remediation and scheduled work, and then a developer center for developers to be able to very quickly and easily be able to interact directly via API with our ARIA platform. If we click over to the multi-cloud overview, you start to get a sense of what multi-cloud looks like in operations today. So we have a high-level view of where our workloads are across these different environments. We can map them out based on location. We have a full inventory across the board of all the workloads, no matter which cloud infrastructure they live on. And then we have visibility into capacity and cost for these workloads as well. if you look in the left-hand pane here, there's still all of the capabilities that you are familiar with and that are critical to your private and hybrid operationalization, just now extended so that you can also use those same skill sets and tool sets for your public cloud workloads. And so I'm just going to drop into observability quickly, because if you come back to the homepage and look at the pillars and we go into observability here, all of those same capabilities that you're familiar with are still here. All of the monitoring and troubleshooting capabilities are still right here, right in the interface. But we also now have the application monitoring, agent risk monitoring, synthetic monitoring, which many of our customers don't even realize is part of the tool set now, and then integrations with additional application performance monitoring tools to really be able to bring everything together. So that was really a quick overview of some of the capabilities that we believe are critical to the VMware Cloud operating model, helping you move from cloud to chaos to cloud smart. But what will this do for you as an organization as you take these next steps? Well, you'll increase the efficiency of your organization. You'll be able to do more with less and improve the time to market because you have this consistent, extensible operational model. You'll increase your productivity because you don't have to retrain staff and relearn tools because you're extending the known trusted environment that you already have. You'll be able to increase resiliency because we have all kinds of enterprise capabilities that are a core part of the VMware platform. By being able to you will increase revenue by being able to focus on differentiating value because you're reducing the complexity of your IT environment. And that will allow you to compete more effectively because you'll be able to expand your capabilities and capacity at the pace needed by the business. So just in wrapping up here, I just want to mention that or remind you why you should trust VMware on your journey from cloud chaos to cloud smart. And it's because you've trusted us for decades with your most critical workloads in your private cloud. And we know what's important to you. We know how to help you adapt and adopt the cloud at your own pace. We have always been an organization of choice, and we have the most comprehensive ecosystem that can allay many of your fears about vendor lock-in with one vendor or another. So that was a very quick overview of VMware's approach to helping customers manage their multi-cloud environments. And if you have other questions or you would like to look up some more information on any of the things that I very quickly ran through today, please do visit vmware.com, and all the information that you need you'll find there, or reach out to your core account team. And I think I have time for just maybe one or two questions. So let me just have a quick look in the chat here. Based on your discussions with customers, what are some of the most critical concerns when it comes to multi-cloud adoption? That's a great question. It's very consistent what we hear from customers in their concerns around multi-cloud. And it really is about visibility and inconsistency. You can't manage or secure what you can't see. And so when there are these silos of resources and siloed teams with different skill sets managing these resources, it's very easy for security policies to be inconsistently applied, for costs to spiral out of control, and for organizations not to be really using and being able to use these their cloud partners in an efficient, cost-effective way. But number one certainly is visibility. Organizations are really struggling to just even be able to see what's out there. And that obviously is the first step to being able to manage it. Can this help us move workloads back from the cloud? So I think that you're talking about VMware Cloud here, our consistent infrastructure across multi-cloud, both the hyperscalers and your on-premises private cloud and hybrid cloud. And yes, absolutely, because it's all the VMware software-defined data center, the environments that you know and manage already with all of those great enterprise capabilities, and it's the same format and the same constructs. Yes, it makes it very easy to migrate both from your private data center into a public data center on VMware Cloud, and also to migrate back should you decide, as many of our customers have, since the end of the pandemic, to start to move some of those workloads that they had to expand into public cloud for it back into their private data centers, where they are able to more effectively manage the costs of those environments. So yes, absolutely. The VMware Cloud is a very good solution to help avoid vendor lock-in. So I don't actually have any time left for additional questions, but there is a handout that is included in these sessions here, and will also be sent out afterwards. So please take a look at that. Go to vmware.com or reach out to your local account team with any questions, or if you would like to get any more information on the solutions that I talked very briefly about today. Thank you all so much for your time. Thank you.
Oh man, well thank you, Mandy, so much for such a wonderful presentation and a great way to wrap up this EcoCast. Absolutely full of information. I saw a couple of high fives and shout outs coming in from all of you out there, and I'm so glad you've been enjoying the day here today. Certainly that was a wonderful way to kind of wrap things up, and lots and lots of great things to think about and mull over as we go on about our days. Now, speaking of which, and things that you're going to be mulling over and digging into over the next couple of days as you relive all the information that you just got. One really helpful way, as I keep saying, are these handouts. This is a really wonderful way to make sure that you are checking in with this information. It's easy to just sort of, oh yeah, that was really cool, and then it kind of falls out of our brains, right? We go on to the next task, and then, oh, what was that thing that, who was that said that? So if you're looking to kind of make sure that you can retain some of this a little bit easier, click on the poll after each one of these presentations. Make sure you're letting these teams know how they can follow up with you. So what additional information you would like to get about the VMware solution. The other way that you're going to make sure that you don't lose track of all this great info is by clicking on the handouts tab. So make sure that you've got that linked open up from VMware, and make sure you've got that tab ready when we kind of close everything out here so that you don't lose track of that. It's going to take you to a resource center for the VMware ARIA Universal Suite. Absolutely jam-packed with information and takeaways. So make sure you've got that open and ready and saved. And then that way, when we close out our webinar, you can revisit that tab and spend a little time exploring all of those exciting resources there. All right, well, you guys are going to do those things, and I am going to move things along to a prize giveaway, because we have another $300 Amazon gift card, and that is going to someone here live and present at the EcoCast, and that someone is Ankit Saxena. Ankit Saxena of California. You have won a $300 Amazon gift card. So our full winners list today: Grace Alexander of Texas, Roberto Lopez de Villa of Puerto Rico, and Ankit Saxena of California. Congratulations to all of you. You will get your $300 Amazon gift cards in follow-up, so stay tuned for that. Also, to everyone who asked a question today, keep in mind you are entered to win that best question gift card, and we will be reaching out to all the winners once we've had a chance to review all those questions, because there were lots and they're all awesome, and we want to make sure we give them a good read through. So we will follow up with you on that. All right, my friends. Well, with that, if you are sitting out in the audience today thinking, man, this is a great way to spend a day, you are not wrong. And not only is it fun to be in the audience, it is also fun to come and talk to us, to present, to talk to the community out there. So if you think that your organization would like to present on a megacast, an EcoCast, a summit, whatever you have in mind, shoot us a message at connect@actualtechmedia.com. We would absolutely love to get that conversation rolling with you. Well, speaking of the whole team here, on behalf of the Actual Tech Media crew, I want to once again thank all of our incredible speakers here with us today from Rubrik, Do-It, Palo Alto Networks, and VMware for making this EcoCast possible. But always a big and giant and heartfelt thank you to all of you out there for attending, for taking time out of your day. I know it's a Tuesday for those of you who had holidays yesterday. I know Canada had a holiday. This is a Monday, and to take time on a Monday morning to come in and hang out and learn some things together. I know it's a big ask and a big lift. And I do think that a lot of times when we get into these best practices and these types of discussions, it is what enables us to maybe take our eye off the race and the finish line and think a little bit more strategically. Think a little bit about not just, have we checked that? Have we gone through that checklist? But also, are we hitting the checklist in the way that we want? Are we enabling all of the opportunities that are available to us? And both for the possibility of growth and scalability and agility, but also for your peace of mind, for you to relax and breathe easy and avoid those weekend working, what Sam and Anton were talking about, not having to work on the weekends and missing those 2 a.m. phone calls. Well, I appear to be losing my voice, so I'm going to wrap things up here. Boy, a very Monday sort of Tuesday is what we're taking away. I'm going to go drink some water. I hope that all of you are doing well out there, and I hope that you got a lot out of our conversation today. But as always, and most of all, I hope that you had fun. Please do come back and join us again. We have a megacast on Wednesday, October 4th. That's tomorrow. So if you are confused by the short week, Wednesday is tomorrow. That's noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Wednesday, October 4th, again, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. We will be talking about fixing your broken data protection and disaster recovery processes and systems. This is going to be a very cool conversation. We've got TierPoint, Zerto, and Rubrik all here with us. So please do come back and join us for that tomorrow. Well, I hope that I will get to see you all again soon. And until then, I hope you have an absolutely beautiful end to your day.